I made this list of like a staircase. The first step would be something that you find really scary, but it's going to start you up. You know, the first scary thing, but not as scary as the 10th step. And during that year, I couldn't do all the steps. I'm just gonna say right away. I remember actually completing the last step of that 10-step list in 2017. So if you're looking at this and you're like, I just have tinnitus, I'm not doing okay, then yes, of course, obviously you're not doing okay. It's really going to take time. Hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 of the video where I tell you all about my journey the first year I had tinnitus. This is a follow-up video from part 1 because while editing I found out that the video was just going to be way too long, so therefore this lovely little voiceover intro. If you haven't checked out part 1, then I'll advise you to do so, because otherwise you may find it difficult to catch on to the story because I just like bam start talking. Okay, so let's start the video. I was drawing in complete silence, and at some point while I was drawing I realized that I didn't hear my tinnitus for maybe a couple of seconds. But obviously it was still there, it didn't go away, but I didn't hear it because I was focused on something else. Because I was drawing, so I stopped, and I didn't have any music on, it was in silence. So I stopped drawing and I thought, oh my god, that was the first time in months where I didn't think of my tinnitus. I have to just do something and then I don't think about my beeps. Oh my god, is this it? And so I changed everything. I remember I made this plan of everything that I was really scared to do because of my tinnitus, because I was afraid of noise, sounds. I didn't even go shopping on a Saturday or on another day, like in the beginning, like none of that, because I was scared to go outside. I was scared because what if a car came by and it would honk because of another car? What if I would go shopping and the music in the store would be too loud? What if a child would scream right in front of me? What if just everything that can happen outside, noise-wise, petrified. So I didn't really do that. I did not face my fears of sounds-wise. I didn't try to get used to sounds again because I was too scared. So I made this list of like a staircase. The first step would be something that you find really scary, but it's going to start you up. You know, the first scary thing, but not as scary as the 10th step. And during that year, I couldn't do all the steps. I'm just gonna say right away. I remember actually completing the last step of that 10-step list in 2017. So if you're looking at this and you're like, I just have tinnitus, I'm not doing okay, then yes, of course, obviously you're not doing okay. It's really going to take time. And I remember the first step I had to take was travel via train. Why was I scared to travel via train? I was afraid of going into the train and hearing the sounds that a train makes. Also, waiting for the train when you have other trains passing by. Oh, I still hate that sound because it's really loud. But being in the train and then having like, you can hear the wheels sometimes being really rough, like, you know, like that. I was scared of that. I was scared of the ding, ding, ding. Next stop is, and so after a couple of months of me having tinnitus, I traveled via train. I didn't travel in the rush hour. I would travel at like noon. I would go to The Hague. I would be there and I would take the train back. So I would just practice that a couple of times a week, just traveling via train. And then perhaps staying a bit longer in The Hague and then returning, or when it's a bit busier, going in the train and then returning. That was my first step. I think the next step was like going shopping. So being outside, just experiencing the sounds. But like further on my list was like going to the movies. Could never imagine back then that I would be able to go to the movies. But nowadays I go to the movies. I do have hearing protection in, because that's also necessary when you watch a movie, because those sounds can also be loud. but I went to the movies. And like my last step that I reached in 2017 was going on vacation. Because what's even more unknown than going to a country you've never been before? You don't know what sounds will be there. You don't know how it will be in the car, because I was even afraid to be in a car with my ears. And I laugh about it now, but it all made sense to me back then, and it still does, because when I was in a car, the radio would be on. Let's say we would go to family that would live like 2 hours away. That would mean that I would be in a car for 2 hours, can't get away, so the radio would be on for 2 hours. And also when you would like drive on the freeway, you would constantly hear the you know, like the white noise of riding on a freeway. So there would be noise, you would have noise from the engine, but it would be like 2 hours in a row. There wouldn't be a part of that in the journey where it would be just silent. So I was scared of that. Just name it, and I was scared. I was scared of when I would hang out with my friends and they would be a bit too excited and they would laugh loud. I would be scared of that. I would be terrified of going to someone's birthday party. So you would have their family, like their aunts and uncles, nieces and nephews, just, you know, sitting in a circle in the living room, because that's how the Dutch do it. Having a circle, having some cheese, having some cake. That's what happens in the Netherlands. So you would have a small space with maybe 10 people, and everyone would be trying to speak louder than the other one, because you would have a conversation here and you would have a conversation there, so you'd have to be louder for the person next to you to be able to hear you, and that would terrify me. I am scared still of gourmetten. I don't know what this is in English, but like not barbecue, but like, because you do this inside with Christmas in the Netherlands. You would have like you would bake meat and stuff on it, on like this thing, and you know, like that. So you would constantly hear the sizzling, and that, because I have high beeps in my ears, like that is just horrible for my ears. So just, you can name a lot of things and I would tell you I would be scared of that, because da 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 da. So I have come a long way. Also, another thing on my list that I placed, because I wanted to go back to school, to university. I wanted to study again. But I was scared. I was scared of being in class, the teacher would leave, and everyone would go wild. So I would just be scared of the noise of people talking really loud. Because that's something that obviously is going to happen at school. But I remember someone, and I don't know who it was, it could be a doctor or someone that knew someone with tinnitus, but I think it was my doctor, who told my mom that I had to confront sounds within the first year of me having tinnitus. I don't know what the reason behind that was. I didn't really ask, but that was something that would just be in my head. I have to actively be in an environment where there's noise. Like not loud, scary noise, but just noise. When I am in silence, my ears, they get worse because I'm focused on my ears. During those first couple of months, my ears, they got worse because I was in complete silence the whole time. Because I remember way back in the beginning, so the second day of me having tinnitus, I would have tinnitus in my left ear and maybe a tiny little bit in my right. Like I'm doubting, but it was definitely my left one. And then, like after a couple of days, it would be my right one. Then after a couple of weeks, I would have another sound added to the left ear. Then after a couple of weeks, I would have another sound added in my right ear. And that is something that went on for months. So I was already freaking out, but that didn't stop because I just thought, like, here's me trying to get used to the sound that I'm having right now in my ears, but it keeps getting worse. So how am I how am I going to be able to deal with this when it keeps getting worse? But that was because I was doing everything wrong. I was in silence when I wasn't supposed to be in it, because that made me focus on my ears. And tinnitus, that is a monster. When you think of your tinnitus, when you are focused on your tinnitus, it gets worse. In February, so I had back then tinnitus for 9 months. I went back to university. I wasn't even focused on looking for something that I liked. I just had to study. I had to actively, for my mental health, for my ears, I had to seek out noise. And what's the best thing to do when seeking out noise is having to go to school for like 5 days in a week, you know, have to go via train, have to be there, have to have conversations where people are talking too loud in your ears, and then having to go back. And in the beginning of that, like of studying that was really hard. I remember being at home and just being in complete silence that I'm not supposed to do, and just being like, is it worse? I think the sounds have changed. Oh my god, I did something wrong today, didn't I? Still, I was so focused on what I was hearing in my ears. But after maybe a couple of weeks, I found confidence of like, everything is fine. Relax. You're doing good. Everything is fine. You're safe. Your ears are good. You've made the right choice. I couldn't imagine going to school those first couple of months of me having tinnitus. Couldn't imagine it. But I did. For my ears. The first year of me having tinnitus, it was all about facing my fear, which was sounds, noise. And while facing those fears, I was able to not survive, but I was able to live. I was a student. I was trying to look on my 10th step list of things that I can try and do. And with me trying to overcome my tinnitus, I wasn't paying attention to it. I wasn't paying attention to it as in being in silence the whole day and worrying if my tinnitus had changed, if it had become worse, if there was a new beep, a new sound, a new whatever. I wasn't able to do that because I wasn't in silence. And therefore, my tinnitus, instead of it being here, like right in front, it would slowly but gradually go to the background, with me having something to do and not paying attention to my ears that much anymore. My tinnitus actually got softer. I think it got to a place where it was okay because I wasn't so focused on it anymore. And that to me just blew my mind. Having that aha moment of me drawing and for a couple of seconds not hearing my tinnitus because I wasn't focused on it, and I made that choice. The switch flipped. I made that choice. I wrote down those steps. I went to school. I went shopping. I went to family dinner parties. I was hanging out with my friends. I wasn't in silence. And there you have it. All of a sudden, a year had passed, and I'm doing good. 2013 was the worst year in my life. But 2018, 2 years ago, that was the best year of my life. And back then, I couldn't ever imagine that I would ever be able to have a good year again, let alone having the best year ever. And that would just be 5 years later. So if you have any questions, leave them down below. Let me know what you think of videos like this. This is really me being out of my comfort zone, so I'm really curious. In the next video, I am going to talk about how my life is now, because my life now also is way different from like the first year after having tinnitus. I still have struggles, I still have things that I find difficult, and I will tell you all about those in the next video. I want to end this video saying you can prevent tinnitus with having hearing protection in. And if you are watching this and you just found out that you have tinnitus and you're freaking out, please let this sink in. Right now, you're probably in a bad place, right? You are. You're freaking out, right? Completely normal. It's going to get better. Your tinnitus, is that going to stay? Probably. But when you're not that focused on it anymore, it actually gets a little bit better. It's not going to happen for you today or next week or next month, because things like this, it takes time. But just trust the process. So I'll see you all on the next video. Have a great and amazing day. Bye bye!